Hey, it is Monday night. It's another Monday night. These weeks go by. This week/week, you all know what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about, the release of Ursula's Return. Hey, Aaron,
Hi.
you're gonna have to get close to your microphone.
Hello, everybody. I thought I'd come and say hello.
No, for those of you returning to our weekly show, welcome back. To those who are here for the first time, this is our weekly live stream from 7 to 8 every Monday, where we talk all things Lorcana, but mostly the latest news, cards, format, meta, all that stuff. And part of our goal is to connect people with other people in the community to build a sense of community. So we love interacting with you in the live chat. So feel free to send questions throughout the show. And we love bringing on guests. We love meeting new people. I'm pretty excited. One of our fans weeks ago, Steven, who's watching now, took a look at our guest list a while ago and said, hey, you all have brought on, over 90 unique guests to the show. We had 3 new people a couple weeks ago, and I think with 2 new guests tonight, we're getting pretty close to that 100 mark.
Wow.
So yeah, 100 unique guests on the show, which is pretty exciting.
That
right?
is amazing.
Yeah.
We should actually count and then have
You're gonna have to get people. I can't hear
Sorry,
you.
I know. I'm we're in a different spot, so it's a little awkward, and I'm not going to be able to stay for very long. But no, we should actually count, and then we can do like businesses when they have their 100th customer, they have woo, you're the 100th customer. We can
That's
be like,
true.
woo, you're the 100th guest.
We're gonna have to figure out who that is.
Unless of course we've already passed it, in which case that'll be awkward.
Well, we'll pretend we haven't. Yeah, we're gonna have to, or have the 100th guest back on.
Oh yeah, there we go. Congratulations, you were the 100th guest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oof, that would be a lot of work.
We're gonna have to do that. So if anybody has any ideas which you'd like to see for a 100 guest show, let us know.
Yeah.
Because we're pretty excited about that.
I can't believe we've been at this for 10 months.
Yeah.
That's kind of nuts.
Yeah. We've only missed a couple weeks, so it's pretty impressive. So, but yeah, lots to talk about this week. I have a few. We have some house cleaning things we're gonna to talk about. We have 2 guests to have on the show. We're gonna do some trivia at the end, like the last couple of weeks. We're gonna do a trivia game with one of our guests, and we're gonna play for somebody in the chat. So if you're here, we're gonna pick at random. As best we can, and so if you're here in the chat, let us know throughout the show. Chime in. And we'll be sending a playmat to somebody courtesy of, Brandon, if he can win our trivia game, which should be fun.
You just announced who our guest was.
I know. It sounded weird when I was like, our guest. Plus, it's on the thumbnail, so Anyway,
surprise.
But yeah, so let's bring him in. So, folks, I'm really excited to welcome to the show BrendonAPG. Brandon, welcome.
Yep, thanks for having me. I was actually just I was shooting a retweet on this because I saw it on Twitter. But yeah, happy to be here. It's crazy you guys have had almost 100 people. That's absolutely wild. That is actually so many people. I would have thought if you had asked me the number before you said, I probably would have been like, I don't know, 30, 50, but 90. Wow, that is a lot. And you guys have been at this for almost as long as as I have. I mean, you said 10 months. I remember back in the early days, we started almost before the set even came out. And yeah, it's crazy to think about how far we've come now with Ursula's Return dropping, and we have ATL and Leo. I remember when competitive play was not even on the table. It was not even on the menu. It was like this aspirational thing. Maybe it will happen, maybe it will not. And in a few days here, we're going to be traveling to a 2,000 player tournament, which is just, it's crazy.
It is crazy to think of how far we've come.
Yeah.
Because I mean, back then, I mean, so I should have announced this right up front, but for those who don't, I'm sure everybody recognizes Brandon, but for those who don't, because maybe perhaps you just listen to the podcast or whatever, Brandon is one of the hosts of Podcana. I think the original Lorcana podcast from way back. Right after D23, you all popped up and started talking about Lorcana when we only knew 6 cards.
Yeah. Also the original host as well. We've gone through some host changes, which has been interesting. That's a first for me. But yeah, I'm very happy with where it's at right now, especially with Moyen and Kawa hopping on. I mean, I love the perspectives from both of them.
It is a fantastic podcast. It is always great when you have multiple, and there's a number of shows and podcasts that do this, but when you have multiple hosts, multiple people coming to offer different perspectives, and you all do that really well. So definitely one of the podcasts I enjoy listening to. So appreciate it. Yeah, but yeah, no. To your point, we've come a long way. And yeah, man, we could talk about. I do kind of want to touch on Atlanta because I think
it's a fascinating tournament. It's almost impossible to metagame for. I've never had to approach a tournament like that in my entire life, and I've played a lot of tournaments.
Actually, you know what? Let's do that. Before we talk about Ursula's return, which is the topic du jour, let's talk about Atlanta since because you're going, we're going. I know a number of people in the chat are going. If you're going to Atlanta in the chat, let us know. But yeah, I've had the same problem kind of prepping. Every time I settle on a deck, I'm like, no, maybe not. And it's just tricky. How are you preparing?
I settled on a deck a long time ago, but it's slightly because I'm okay with the inherent variance that might come with that deck. I think that I'm bringing Ruby Amethyst, which I believe is not the most powerful deck in the game. And it's very much against my ethos and my usual thesis when attending a tournament to not play the most powerful deck. I'm very much sort of blinders to any level of enjoyment or, affinity towards the deck. I will just pick what I think is sort of the best deck in the room at the time. Ruby Amethyst does not meet that criteria, but the criteria it does meet for me is consistency, and I think that's going to be key at one of these tournaments. Like if I look back at the set championship metagame that was held in local game stores, I think that is going to be the most accurate data point to extrapolate from in order to try to predict something like Atlanta. Because I want to speak to Atlanta specifically because it is like that number of players is kind of ridiculous. Like 2,000 open tournament is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
And you have to think about like what is the clientele here? Like what kind of players are we going to be interacting with, engaging with? Like who is going to Atlanta? Is it people that are engaging with the game on a casual level, a kitchen table level, people that are dipping their toes into competitive, or is it all those spikes that you met at the top tables of your set championships and the people in all the discords and all of that stuff? And I think it's a combination of everyone, to be honest, which is it's really interesting. I haven't attended a tournament like that before. And so because of that, I've ended up on Ruby Amethyst because I think that consistency is key to having success in this tournament. What I want more than anything is a very smooth matchup spread. And I think that some of the other very powerful options don't have that. Things like blue-red, which I think is probably the most powerful deck in set 3. Like if your early rounds, and we can talk about another concept, which is called the loser's metagame, which is what will happen if you lose in round 1 or 2. You can drop into a sort of a more variable bracket where you'll be facing non-meta decks. And if you play something like blue-red, you could fall into what would probably in set 3 trend towards more aggressive decks. And it's actually my biggest reason for not bringing that deck is because I don't think I have enough control over predicting the variability of my sort of round 1, round 2, round 3 matchups. And I want to bring the most consistent deck possible.
Yeah, no, it is fascinating. I've same like thought experiment. All right.
Sorry, I had a little bit of a hiccup on the restream. I'm not sure if that is that just me or
no, it's some.
I'm not sure. So like right now I would vamp, but I'm not sure who's frozen and who's not. I'm assuming that I'm the one that's not frozen. In which case I'm happy to vamp. that was my only caveat there waiting. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was me or if it was you frozen at that time. Looks like
Google Library in our neighborhood. It's exactly what you want to happen during a live stream.
No, it's fine. I mean, you just got to roll with the punches. So now that I know that it is not me, if it happens again, I can I can fill the void. So
Yeah,
because I was
that's
kind of just sitting there, and I'm like, am I frozen? Am I not? Yeah, I didn't know.
Oh no. Oh no. Yeah, you're solo hosting. It's funny. We did that. This happened only once before, I think, on a stream, and it was on a women's live stream, and there were 5 people on, and the stream crashed, and the only person left was a guest named June, who's wonderful. She's in high school, an aspiring artist, and she was left all by herself. And she handled it like a champ and like solo hosted for 10 minutes and became a legend on this show. So we've had her back a few times. So anyway,
you were mentioning though, you were talking about sort of your methodology and your ideas for what deck and you might play at Lille and like what you're thinking about going into the tournament.
Yeah, no, I've had similar, thinking through it and talking to folks. It does spread the gamut of people who are experiencing their first competitive event. There are people going to Atlanta, we know, who didn't play in set championships, and this will be their first big event. And then there's a lot of spikes, a lot of the faces you typically see. A lot of former Magic pros. You and a lot of content creators. So it's gonna be fascinating to see how the day progresses. But like you, I think Ruby Amethyst is probably the most consistent deck. I am sticking with the deck I know, really. So I thought about trying to game the meta and look at things, but at the end of the day, I'm sticking with the deck that I know the best. It's no secret I'm going with Emerald Amethyst just because it's my favorite. And
I think that might be the best deck in the metagame as well, to be honest. I think it's like almost like a post-set championships revelation, where I think a lot of people are hopping over to that deck actually. So it's not getting the spotlight it should because it doesn't have the sort of the publicity or the data points off of winning set championships. But I think that might be one of the best decks in the game, to be honest.
Well, it makes me feel better. I just have to avoid the Emerald Steel matchup in the early games, and I do something different too. I run Cuscos. I run 2 Cuscos for my end game. So
yeah, there was some card Moyne was playing against me. I can't remember the name. Started with a T, and basically it gained allure every time he lost a character. That made it really hard for me as Ruby Amethyst. Yeah.
Tiberius.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Give something reckless as well. It was tough to deal with. I think that deck is extremely positioned. I actually think that deck probably didn't get enough respect in set 3, especially after Art the Box's his showcase of the deck. It was looked at as more of a niche meta pick, but I think it might just be this very similar to Ruby Amethyst, but a bit better.
Yeah. No, that's good to hear. That makes me feel a little more confident. Yeah, that's what I'm taking in, and it is just gonna be a really fun event. I'm gonna be interested to see how it will require some luck, of course, how matchups in the first few rounds, but I'm really excited to see how the 2-game format like winnows the field throughout the day, who we see kind of setting themselves apart, and it's just gonna be a great experience, I think.
Yeah, I remember someone mentioned this in regards to ATL and Lille. You will need a combination of both luck and skill, but you definitely can't just have luck. You also have to be a skilled player and a very lucky player on the day to do well. And that's all card games are. I mean, tournaments are basically designed to create losers, in the sense that you have 500 people enter, only 8 walk away with reasonable prizes, and then there's 1 winner. So it's like no matter what kind of preparation you put in or where you think your current skill level is and what the disparity between you and other players might be, like the nature of card games and why we enjoy them is variance, and that can absolutely happen in a tournament, and it will happen more often than not. Actually, it's just statistically destined to be the case. So I think a lot of people will, if Lorcana is the first card game and they come off of a lot of success at the set championships at their local game store, and then they don't feel, they maybe don't do well at ATL, they might think it, they might read into it a little bit more than they should, and it's just the case. You go to a 2,000 player tournament like this, like there's a lot of things that are going to be you need to go right for you on the day.
Yeah, no, that's actually a fascinating point. I'm gonna go down to like a nerdy tangent here, but I found it fascinating. Well, nobody else will, but I'll tell you anyway. So I was trying to do a comparison of the 2-game format versus the 3-game Swiss round format, and so I ran a simulation, online, complicated, but the end result was I had a scoring system for players, ranked skill wise, and the skill represented meta calls and who ate breakfast that day, who was mentally prepared. But basically the idea that there's certain players that are going in, skill wise, preparation wise, best equipped to succeed. and ran the simulation 100 times to see which format was best at identifying the top players. And I won't go into which one was better, but what I was the 2-game format actually. But what I will say, what was fascinating to your point about luck and variance is most of the time, out of the top, I wanted to see out of the top 10 players who made the top cut. There were 70 some odd players. And each time making the top cut was about 5 or 6 of the top 10 players. But they were always there was always some variance there. And you sometimes had people from 20 popping up in, and that's the luck factor that comes in. So yeah, even just running a simulation, you had pretty consistently, 5, 6 out of the top 10 players making the top cut. But then there were always, these weird luck variations. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm very happy it's not 3-game format, and it's not due to any sort of what has the higher integrity of skill. It's actually due to the timer. I think that a 3-game format, unless you are an actual PhD time lawyer, is it's going to limit your deck choice. It's very hard to finish games. Like playing blue red, playing ruby amethyst, playing blue steel. It's tough, especially if your opponent is not participating in trying to make the game actually go fast. I think the unintentional draws are a huge issue. So I'm very happy to move away from that, to be honest. In my set championships, I thought about the clock more than I thought about any other singular game action every single tournament.
Yep, I completely agree with you. And especially as we talked about in Atlanta, where you have some new players who may be playing slower unintentionally. It's their first competitive event. They're nervous. Nerves are there. They're trying to choose the optimal.
Yeah. So looks like we hit a fiber thing again. So now, okay, I was about to vamp. I was like, now I know it's just me.
Yeah.
But
no,
looks like you're back.
It's not you. I'm hoping we keep this to a minimum. So part of this is us being out of our studio, and it's a huge thing, but we'll deal with it. But anyway, so yeah, Atlanta, super excited. I'm excited to catch up with you in the back end and follow your tournament progress. So
yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't know. These first tournaments, I think players are a lot more results oriented than they are later in the game sort of life cycle. Just because it is the first, and I think a lot of people had a lot of success at their local set championships, and they think that it will convert, or it should convert more than it should convert. But the fact of the matter is that for a lot of us, including myself, it just might not. It might not be our day. So even though I think that I've sort of set myself up well, you just never know. You just never know how it will go. So maybe it'll go well, maybe it won't. But these things, at the end of the day, it's a numbers game. I'm happy they expanded the qualification to top 16 outside of top 8. Top 8 would have been intense for 2K play tournament.
Yeah, 100%. It's gonna be a big field. I've never played in a field this big, so it's gonna be crazy.
Played 1,000. That's my biggest 1,000, and that was huge. That was huge. So I can't imagine 2K. I hope that PPG is up to the task. That's the tournament organizer, because that is logistically, that's a lot. And hopefully Melee is up. I don't know if I'm assuming they're using Melee because I know one of the people is going. But yeah, I hope that the software doesn't crash, because it tends to actually. Even when you get to 500 to 1,000, the software tends to really struggle.
Yeah, I do wonder if they're using Melee, because I know they've built in the 2-game format into the system. I also know that PPG, for pretty much everything else, uses Best Coast pairings. So I'll be interested to see which one they go with. But whichever it is, let's hope that it's up to the task.
Yeah, or we could be in for some 14, 16, 18-hour days. I think not with 2-game format. It's going to drastically limit how long we'll be at the tournament. But some of the early Flesh and Blood tournaments I played, they were 16-hour tournaments, 18-hour tournaments. They were marathons. It was crazy.
It's wild. All right. We're happy to take more questions about Atlanta as we go, but let's talk a little bit about Ursula's return. With the caveat that I know both of us have been focusing so much on Atlanta that we haven't 100% been looking at the new set.
I'm probably 90%, to be honest. I still play it. And unfortunately, my go-to methodology for finding decks at the start of a metagame is a bit uninspiring. I just net deck Savige and Moyen and people like that, and then I tweak the decks from there. So I've a good amount of experience so far with the list, but I've been brewing too much myself. I'm not much of a brewer. I'm
I'm right there with you. Same. I'll use what's popular as a starting point, and then I'll tweak it a little bit, depending on my play style and what I'm seeing in the meta. So, but yeah, same starting point for me. You may as well look at what other people have already spent some time on, and chances are if it's not your deck, you're going to be playing against it anyway, so you may as well learn it. But yeah, so what do you think? What's your impression just overall of this set and its place in the game and what it's done for, I don't know, the card pool?
I think it's very powerful. I think it's more powerful than I think set 3 was potentially. Set 3 really pushed like some of the big control decks up to the top and sort of put some of the aggro decks back at the bottom. But with this set, I think that we've seen a complete metagame shakeup. And I think one of the great litmus tests for is the set powerful is does Ruby Amethyst still exist? And it kind of doesn't right now, which is a good example that it's just a good point that the set actually made the entire format a lot more powerful. Because if you have the sort of Jund-esque, which is what Ruby Amethyst was, and for a Magic the Gathering reference, this Jund-esque deck that was performing well in set 3 now seems to be borderline not competitive. I mean, it probably is competitive, but I mean, it just feels so middling at this point compared to what some of these other decks are doing, especially in the context of Diablo, which is just it's an absolutely crazy card.
Yeah. On that note, a question from Scott Oliver, a listener of yours, by the way, is Diablo more overrated or Ice Block more underrated?
It's interesting. So I think it's always like a good thing to look back towards. Look towards set 3, week 1. And who remembers the Jafar conversations, Jafar being the most overpowered card in the game, broke the game, should be banned, etc. And then it became like borderline unplayable. I don't think that Diablo is in the same vein because Jafar is like a multi-card setup. It's also a high-cost card, and Diablo is just not any of those things. Diablo is a one-card engine that is cheap and that interacts with everything in the game because it fundamentally interacts with draw engines. It's not like it's interacting with a singular card like a whole new world like Jafar was. So I think the card is actually, I think it is correctly rated at this point. I don't think it should be banned, but it is extremely, extremely powerful. And I think it's completely warped the game at this point. Like I don't think that this metagame it resembles set 3 at all. Mostly because of Diablo. I think it's changed the context and everything.
Yeah, I tend to think you're right. Diablo strikes me as one of those cards that we're going to see for a long, long time. It's going to be favored for a while. We're going to see it built into a lot of decks in the meta, and then people are going to tech against it. It's going to kind of disappear or fade a little bit, but then over time, it's going to come back in, and we're just going to see it worked into most Emerald decks for I don't know, for a long time.
Yeah, I think it'll make it into Emerald decks. I think it'll be a mainstay in Emerald decks, even when teched against. So the thing about tech cards and teching against cards, especially with the context of like what can you tech against it, I think that look at a card that is a tech card, Brawl. That's a 1-for-1 trade, and the only equity you get off that trade is you trade an inkable for an uninkable. So it's a very, very clean 1-for-1 trade, which is terrible because Brawl just like it doesn't hit other things. It's just like this niche clunky card that can't be sung, and that's looked at as like an answer to Diablo. And I think that for me really displays how powerful Diablo is the fact that people have Brawl in their deck is just like Diablo's crazy. And you would always rather be the player that's being responded to than the player that has the tech cards and is trying to respond, especially when we're talking about 1-for-1 removal. I mean, some of these other cards like the Sisu is really powerful, but I don't know, against an extremely fast Emerald deck, you're talking about trying to get to ramp to a shift 6 Sisu or ramp to an 8-cost Sisu. It's a tall order, to be honest. Like you need to have a lot of ramp, especially if they're dropping Merfolks early. So yeah, I think a lot of the removal that is currently being used against Diablo is not that great, to be honest. But that's a bigger conversation. Pretty much all the removal in Lorcana is terrible. It's really, really bad. Like it's overcosted. It's not efficient. Like I think they specifically did that on purpose. But that's why we don't see any. I think maybe in set 3 we saw a little bit. We don't see any true hyper control decks. We kind of just see these like mid-range-esque, mid-range control decks that have win conditions. So,
yeah, no, I kind of agree with you on the Diablo front. Yeah, so you're right. Like most of them
okay, looks like it's just me. I'm ready for it this time. But yeah, in regards to removal in Lorcana,
an
Like
example.
oh,
not
you're
only
back.
Brawl,
You're
but
back. Okay.
oh, there we go. My bad. Oh gosh.
It's all
3
good.
times. So, cards, talking about tech cards against it, like it occurs to me, grab your swords, we saw disappear from the meta, I think, in a lot of decks last set. Emerald Steel didn't run it a lot, but that's a card I think you could see popping back in because the Shift Robin Hood on 3 allows you to play grab your swords, and respond to Diablo immediately. So it's things like that. I think, once we see cards like that, start to pop back into the meta to deal with Diablo, you could see, him fade a little bit, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
Very
but
good.
what's interesting about that is like, so if the grab your swords, it's going to be like, I understand that some of these emerald decks is like, okay, you kill a Diablo, the deck outside of Diablo is fundamentally bad, so you still win. But if you talk about shifting a Robin Hood and then singing a grab your swords and then trading Diablo, like you actually kind of lose that trade, especially when you talk about value, right? You're trading a 5-cost uninkable card for a 3-cost uninkable card, and you're having to multi-card combo in order to remove the Diablo. Like the Diablo is just a much better, higher value card in that situation because you need a lot more things to go right for you to be able to actually deal with it. Yeah. So you're fundamentally trading down because you're trading 1 for 1 and it's a 3-cost uninkable for a 5-cost uninkable. But ultimately, like you're also talking about what is to an extent like a 3-card combo to deal with it quick and efficiently. And that's just not great for the steel deck. The argument past that, because that's talking out of context, right? We're talking pure card value. If you put it in context, you could say, if I kill the Diablo by shifting my Robin Hood, the Emerald deck does so poorly against me and is so poorly positioned against my steel deck that I can lose value on this trade, but I will win the game because the only way the Emerald deck can win the game is through this Diablo draw engine. So that's kind of where the equation comes back around, but it's mostly context based.
Yeah. Fascinating. What other cards impress you this set?
Interesting. Yeah. So honestly, a lot of the item cards. So of course we have the steel popsicle, which has sort of been overshadowed by blue red. Like blue red's a fascinating deck because it keeps all of the whole new world decks in check. Whole new world probably being the most context agnostic powerful card in the game, but blue red is keeping like blue steel, which could utilize this to drastically increase the efficacy of its Flaversham draw engine. It's just keeping it out of the metagame. I run into a lot of blue steel, but I just don't think it's competitive into a blue red metagame, and blue red is also it seems fine against most of the decks. I think that's probably the biggest winner of set 3. I mean, Emerald, let's be real, Emerald is the biggest winner, but in terms of like powerful deck, staying powerful, potentially top of the metagame, it's got to be blue red. Like you give blue red more tools to deal with aggressive decks, and it's just like it's a hard package to beat because you have the ramp in blue, you have the the best removal you can get, which is in Ruby, and then you have a draw engine that beats out almost every other draw engine in the game. Like that was the issue with Ruby Amethyst versus blue red for a long time now, is that the Flaversham draw engine is just infinitely better than Friends on the Other Side. It's infinitely better than bouncing your Merlin Rabbits. Like blue red is just the best control deck in the game. And if it's not going to consistently struggle against more aggressive decks that try to target it, then it's hard to brew up a deck that actually does well into blue red. It just gets so much value.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, fair. So you've talked a lot though about existing decks that just got better. Is there any new deck you think that on the horizon here that you think?
There's one, but people will accuse me because they'll say it existed before, but it didn't. And that's Amber Ruby Mufasa. That deck did not exist. It was not competitive, but now it's one of the best decks in the game. And I'll definitely get some flack for that. It's kind of a meme on Podcana, is that, yeah, I mean, Mufasa, Ruby, Amber, Mufasa was in a very interesting spot in set 3. I think it was definitely one of the worst meta deck. So it was still a meta deck, but it was definitely on the very bottom of that ladder, in my opinion. Now I believe that it is on the absolute top of that ladder. So it has transcended from a not real deck to a real deck for me.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
So it's funny you say that because Red Fossa in my local meta was very present and did pretty well. I think in our 54-person set championship, out of the top 8, 3 were Red Fossas.
And you're in Austin as well, so yeah,
I'm in Austin.
Big events. I was in Dallas, so yeah. I saw no Red Fossa.
It's fascinating. So yeah, by the way, a lot of you Dallas folks like to travel down for our events. So thanks for staying up there. It's always funny. We get a lot of Dallas folks down here. A lot of great players up there.
There's a
lot of
few.
great players.
Yeah, there's a few for sure. Like our top 8s were all Ruby Amethyst and all Red Blue. There may have been a couple Amber Steels that would sneak in, but I was able to win 4 events, and in all of those top 8s, it was usually 4 Ruby Amethyst, 2 Blue Red, and then 2 Blue Steel or Amber Steel, something like that. Yeah. Very consistent. Yeah, very consistent. Ruby Amethyst was by far the most represented deck in the top 8.
Fascinating. Yeah. Of course it was. Notes. Well, let's do a quick transition. I want to do 2 things. First, I want to look at I want to continue the discussion about Ursula's return, but I want to look at a couple pictures from the weekend, and then I want to invite in our next guest, and then I want to talk about Illumineer's quest, and then we'll keep talking about Ursula's return. If you have any questions in the chat, feel free to send them. Hobbies and Happiness says Brendon is always right. That's not a question, but we'll highlight it.
Yeah, those guys are from the very beginning as well. They were doing Lorcana content before it came out.
Wearing their merch tonight.
Oh, are you? That's crazy.
I am. So Hobbies and Happiness is a great merch store. So go check it out. Thanks for being here, guys. Just a couple random. We like to highlight things from around the community, and I saw this picture the other day. Ursula's return celebration cake from Let Them Eat Cake and Macron's. I thought it was bonkers, and I wanted to highlight it. So if you're watching out there from Let Them Eat Cake, this is kind of brilliant. I don't know.
That's absolutely wild.
I know. It's crazy. Another one of our subscribers attended Disney Store or launch of Ursula's return in the Disney Store in London, which I have to say I've put going to a set release in London on my bucket list because the Disney Store over there always does it right. They had an artist in attendance. They had promo cards. It was a big thing. So thanks for the pictures, and definitely gonna try to make that happen sometime in the lifespan of Lorcana. Wanted to shout out my LGS. They do this every set. They spend all night wrapping over 100 starter decks, so that players can have the few second experience of unwrapping the starter deck as if it's a present. And I just think that's so cool. It's a lot of time and effort. So thanks to Game Castle and Austin for doing that.
Game Castle, that's your local store.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny. Game Castle is my first competitive tournament ever was at Game Castle in Austin. I'm not sure if there's a couple. It was for a Flesh and Blood $10,000 tournament when nobody knew about the game. And that's actually how I became everything that I don't know, in TCGs. Is I was able to get second in that tournament. I flipped that money into going to a tournament in Auckland and then made my friends, started my podcast. Like literally everything came from Game Castle. I still have the pen that I got for top 8 in Game Castle. So I use it at every single event. I think it might have froze, but Game Castle is like, I don't know. It's very fresh in my mind. That is like, it was a very interesting scenario back in the day. I'm not sure if you caught any of that or you froze, but the TLDR is I went to Game Castle a long time ago and it started for me, the journey that was everything in TCGs.
That's awesome. I'm going to watch the replay later and get that story as I fight through these difficulties. But yeah, no, I like the franchise. It's always fun when I travel and I'm like, who's the local game store here? And I see it and it's a Game Castle and I pop in. I don't know. It's great. And I'm glad that Game Castle brought you here because that's awesome. I did have to, this picture is doing 2 things. One, I wanted to shout out a couple of our subs who wore our merch we don't really have merch, but they sent us an email and they're like, hey, can you make us shirts? And we're like, okay. So we did. And they wore our shirts. And then also I had to highlight, I did make a bet with some of our followers that if I got a certain number of likes and retweets or whatever, that I would wear the Hercules costume used in our card reveal to the set launch. And everybody did. So I did. And it was only sort of awkward, but also sort of awesome. So here I am playing One Last Hope in Hercules costume. And yep. So there you go. So let it not be said that I don't follow through on bets because it did. All right. So transitioning to, I want to talk about Illumineer's quest, but to do it, I want to bring in another guest. He's the founder of the Lore Seekers Pro team from Florida, right, Terrace?
Yes, sir. How's it going, guys?
Terrace Black. Terrace, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no problem.
It's like a quintessential Florida background. I'm not gonna lie.
Literally, yeah. I lost my webcam. Well, I didn't lose it. It's at my buddy's house. So I was like, I'm just gonna run outside real quick.
Yeah, it's like a sick atrium. I like that. You got all the Florida trees in the background. I love that.
Yeah, need the palms. Need the palms.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I guess I can update you. We're hitting some freezes occasionally. There we go. We're back in. If it does
Yeah.
freeze, me and
Yeah.
you are still live.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So we'll probably just vamp a bit while it comes back. Usually takes like 30 seconds.
For sure. How you doing, man? This is my first time speaking to you. Watch you all the time, actually.
Oh,
Love
yeah?
your podcast. Yeah.
I appreciate that. I'm doing good. Just happy to be here looking towards AT. Are you going to Atlanta?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Are you keeping your deck choice close to the chest, or is it public info?
No, I think I've pretty much posted it a couple
Yeah.
times already, just like as I've been going on with it. But yeah,
What are you playing?
I'm going with purple steel, but I'm going with more of like a low to the ground, like
Interesting.
5 ink and under build.
Yeah, I'll be playing Ruby Amethyst, which is, I guess they're actually pretty similar decks, I think, at the end of the day. But I know one of my co-hosts, Kyle, was really big into it. Hobbies and Happiness does ask in the chat. I guess I'll do the chat thing too, because it's popping up. We got time. Are you going to Chicago? No, I'm not going to Chicago. I don't know if you are. I didn't get a ticket. Did you happen to get a ticket to that one?
No.
Yeah. I think that's a very select group of people.
Yeah, I have a couple
I'm gonna
buddies in my
one of you
group.
all, like you host from this point forward. This is
We got it. We're vamping. We know the deal now.
yeah. It's only slightly embarrassing. We're professionals, I swear. Anyway, Terrace, thanks for joining us. I want to talk about Illumineer's Quest briefly because Brandon, have you had a chance to play that yet?
Yeah, I played it the past couple days with my partner. I was able to pick up a copy, which was tough, but yeah, I haven't beat it on hard with the starter decks yet. My takeaway was, I think if you get a little bit of variance that goes your way, you could beat it with the decks out of the box. The level above that, which I don't remember the name of it, I don't think you could beat with the starter decks, but I have a few ideas of how to beat that mode, which are pure theory craft at this point. It's really fun. It's really well done. I would recommend picking it up if you're interested in that kind of stuff.
Yeah, Terrace.
Yeah, so I don't have a copy myself. My buddy Justin actually just got me one. So next time I see him, I'll have my own. But I played with a buddy Scott of mine. He kind of hosted the quest for us. And yeah, we tried. Even I think half of us were using decks from the box, and half were using just kind of like our competitive decks we had with us. And we tried hard mode, and I think we got stomped like 2 or 3 times, and had to like go down a difficulty, and then just barely scrape through on that. So I do definitely think that once you get to hard, and especially extreme, you kind of are put in a fun situation where you now have to, like, like Brendan was saying, kind of, theory craft and craft like decks specifically for those modes in order to like get through them. And I think that's pretty sick.
Yeah. I will say until you all lose me again. I've been following this product because obviously it's a brand new in Lorcana's product line this weekend, and I haven't talked to a single person out of probably 50 or 60 people I've seen who played this game who had a bad experience playing that game and who didn't think it was like a fantastic addition to Lorcana's product line. Not only because of how fun it was, but it allowed them to play with people who maybe had not played Lorcana before. And yeah, the co-op mode was, I don't know, just fantastic.
It's very well done. It's like I was impressed. Like, I was expecting more of a gimmick. I don't know if that's fair or not, but I just was. I don't know if I've been just conditioned by other card games, but I was really impressed with how well it was designed, first off, and then the fact that they went the extra mile to do the new arts for Ursula's deck made it feel very thematic, and like, I'm just happy that they're willing to go that extra mile, because they could have not done that, and I think it would have seen similar praise, to be honest. So it shows they care about the product.
Yeah, something I think that's like, so it maybe like a crazy take, I don't know, but like after we were done playing it, my biggest takeaway was that this is potentially Lorcana's equivalent to Commander being the casual like juggernaut that it is for Magic. I don't think that Lorcana is a good like 3 or 4 player versus each other type of game. I don't think it's really built for that. I've met a lot of people that, try to play in that format and really only do it for like league points essentially, because it doesn't really flow as well as you want. Whereas with this, it kind of brings that fun that Commander has of cooperation, and similar to like when maybe there's one player that is just like immediately in the lead and everybody's like, okay, so we agree that we're going after that player, right? And it has that kind of like that spark to it, where you get to cooperate like that. And I think that this is kind of a very unique way for them to use the way that Lorcana functions and the way that Lorcana plays in contrast to those other games to really bring in that like that mode that can bring together not only very competitive players but very, very casual players. And I think like this is that magic. I don't know if like that's how they see it or if other people see it that way, but that was definitely like the main takeaway I had after playing it.
Yeah, I will say I don't think it's crazy, but I do think I mean you have some disagreement in the chat, and I don't know that I would say it takes the place of like multiplayer. But what it does do is similar to Commander and Magic. It provides people who are not competitive players.
There we go. I have a question for you though. Do you play Commander? Are you Commander?
Yeah. That was my biggest like introduction into TCGs outside of like just collecting.
What do you think? What makes Commander special and different? Is it the multiplayer aspect, or is it a different aspect of the game? Like, what do you think differentiates it into being this sort of, I don't know. I mean, it's the most popular format in Magic the Gathering. Do you think it is the multiplayer, or does it have to do with the deck building and the identity as well?
I mean, it's hard to, I guess, pinpoint it to one of those. I think it really is just a culmination of all of them. I mean, what really got me into it was, immediately just like the community aspect and the being able to play with multiple people in kind of like a very like chill, casual setting. But then what really like hooked me was the unique deck building that you could do. Like I think my first main deck was like a Heliod like heals deck.
Yep.
With like the Walking Ballista combo that a friend like eventually put me on to. And just being able to find like some super niche, just random character and then build them up into like something crazy with all these synergies was really what kind of kept me in more than like, oh, I want to play Commander competitively.
Yeah, I did. To be fair, I did just ask you a $1 million question.
Yeah,
it's a question that a lot of companies are trying to answer, which is how do we capture the essence of what is Commander? How do we recreate that phenomenon in our game? And they consistently try to do it with the multiplayer format, and it doesn't work. Because I don't think that the multiplayer format is actually what makes Commander Commander. I do think a lot of it is based in that sort of role play aspect of where you have this empathetic connection with your deck. And you're like, I am an Aurelia player. I am a Jin Gataxis player. My deck does this, and it does this cool thing, and I can come to the table, I can showcase it with my friends. And obviously, it's a social experience and has the political aspect. But a lot of games, what they'll try to do is they'll go, okay, if we just tack on multiplayer and say there's 4 players that sit across the table from each other and we use our game system, then it will be Commander, and it never is. And you see these formats kind of consistently fail. Yeah, and I think that to an extent, and I know people do like Lorcana's version of that, Lorcana's multiplayer format, but I think the reason, or the main reason Lorcana doesn't feel like Commander yet is because you don't have that identity in your deck yet. You have these sort of, these very ethereal color combinations, like I'm a red-yellow player, or I'm a blue-steel player, but you don't really have like, this is my Mufasa deck, or this is my this is my Robin Hood deck or something like that. I think if they doubled down on that, we could see it expand quite a bit.
Yeah, 100%. I guess we'll have to wait for the future to really see kind of how that fleshes out. And like kind of like my statement earlier, I don't want to make it seem as though this quest is what I believe to be like gameplay wise a 1-to-1 with Commander. I see it more so as like this is a like a star format for this game outside of like competitive play that kind of brings that like co-op and like multiplayer aspect, I think, really well in the scope of the game. I would love to see if they do try that, like, you know, commander type, like you have the, like you were saying, the single characters, like this is my Hades deck, this is, you know, this or that. I don't know. I'd be interested to see how that kind of plays, because I think commander works well because of the, like, the way that you win. Like, it's not a I'm going to get to 20. It's I'm going to, like, I just have to survive while everybody else like
Yeah.
dies essentially, and there's no way to really, and so like the you know, no pun intended, but kind of like the magic in that is that we can, as maybe me and somebody else, hone in on one person or team up and have that kind of like diplomatic like play style. Whereas in Lorcana, it's very like baseline. It's essentially a race. So I don't think it can really function on that kind of
Yeah.
like complexity. I don't think it
Lorcana, yeah.
can.
Lorcana doesn't have asymmetric win conditions. The only one that exists, I think, is mill. And due to all characters being able to tap, no matter what, you know, they come in, they can get their quest value unless you have an answer. It's very different from Magic the Gathering, where you could potentially play something, you know, like you could have Trinisphere and Searing Bridge and lock people out of the game. And that is in a form of a win condition. We don't have that in Lorcana. It is very much, like you said, it is a race. The only asymmetric win condition we have is mill. And it's like, I don't even know if it's intentional. It's just
Yeah, I would love if they. I've been kind of constantly telling my friends and stuff since I think the beginning of the game that I think purple, like amethyst, should be the mill color. I think it works, and I mean they've kind of teased some like specifically mill cards in the quest with Bruno, and like I'm sitting there and I'm like, why is this card not in the actual game? Why are there not cards just like this in the actual game? Obviously, you know, not a 2-drop inkable that's a 4/4, but you know.
yeah. I'm sorry if we took too much time.
Oh, you guys are killing
Went
it.
down
I'm,
the
like, in and out,
vamp
and
road.
This is terrible. Google Fiber for the loss. So this is what I get for not streaming in my studio. No, you guys are killing it. I do think one thing that also you may have hit it, but in addition to like the you know, the asymmetric with their win conditions, and then the things you talked about, what makes Commander popular, the role play aspect, I think what makes it fun for a lot of people.
No.
There
we go. Okay, there we go.
You know, just whether or not people win or lose, sometimes they build a deck and they want to do something really cool, like build an engine. And if it goes off, even if they lose, it's cool because they managed to do a thing. And Commander gives them that space to kind of like just build something interesting and do something cool. I don't know. I think that's the other piece of it.
Yeah. Lorcana doesn't really have a lot of those, because I think a lot of engines and like those interesting things you can do in Magic, a lot of times they are a bit zero sum in terms of the fun. A bit one-sided on the fun, and I think that Lorcana's, like, one of Lorcana's key points of design is that the fun should be mostly symmetric. That's why I think that your characters can tap when they come in; they can sort of get their value, stuff like that. I think they try to avoid that kind of card design, but the more I play card games, the more I appreciate zero sum card design, because it just leads to the very interesting interactions. Oh, I disappeared. Probably checking on the internet. I gotta read some of these. Oh, we're back.
Yeah, it's awful. Let's see. You know, since I missed half the conversation, yeah, you know, Illumineer's quest. Anyway, one thing I do, final thing before we move on to some trivia and stuff. I know, DM sorry, Disney Magic indeed. The one thing I want to mention too, you know, you all mentioned how they really went over the top with this product. They did not have to build a completely separate deck with all original artwork, with all original theming, like in this product. And they really took the time. I mean, the artwork is expensive, and doing a whole other, bajillion illustrations is over the top. So I appreciate the time and the effort they put into this product. Yeah.
Yeah, they went above and beyond. Like I said, I think it would have gotten a similar. It would have been received similar if they had not done that. And I remember when I opened the Ursula deck, I was pleasantly surprised. This product, by the way, is also, I mean, at least if you live in the United States, it's very hard to get. It is extremely hard to get. Like, people want this product more than they want any other Ursula's Return product. I don't know if it's short printed, but you cannot get this product.
Yeah, it is fascinating. We have seen pre-sales pop up in a lot of big box stores. Like Best Buy offered a bunch. They were pre-sold on Amazon. So I'm just wondering if the allocation went more heavily towards, big retailers and the game stores kind of got the short shrift here.
Yep, for sure. And I saw some of those big retailers. They were like May 31st, I believe, was like when you would actually get them. So yeah, I think if you were like FOMOing for it, you're probably going to pay in the like $80 to $130 range.
Yeah.
I hope that they go with, even if it's in the future or whatever, like they approach this as essentially like a board game product. Like it should be on the shelves at all time. I don't think it should be we only reprint it once or twice. Like I see no reason why, something like this can't just be around indefinitely as like a board game.
Oh, looks like we're frozen. I will tell DM Armada, because he says he wants one, that you can borrow mine if you want. I don't know if you need it for a video or something like that, but if you want to borrow my version, you're welcome to, because Laurel and I have played it quite a bit at this point.
Yeah, it's a great product. Terrace, I like what you said about this being a board game product, because it really is a product you can put on the shelf. And when friends come over, if you're one of those board game people who every time you have guests over, you're like, open your board game closet and you're like, let's play a game. We're one of those people. This game can occupy that spot, and you can use it to intro people to the game, which is kind of fun.
100%. Also, earlier in the podcast, I think you said a character's name wrong. You were speaking on Lyle, the Emerald card.
Lyle Tiberius Work. Yeah. It does have a cool name though, right? Lyle Tiberius Work.
Yeah, that guy is sick. I think he would actually make Extreme on Ursula a lot easier.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I was wondering if we were going to theorycraft about Extreme. I was thinking I think if you play Diablo, it just gets very easy. Like, not very easy, but I think that, like, because Ursula draws like 5 cards a turn on Extreme, like, very quickly. And that means that if you play Diablo and you tap Diablo, because you would shift him on 2, you would tap him, you would draw 5 cards.
Yeah, I think if you have like a red-blue player that's essentially just playing red-blue, making sure that you have like Be Prepared in there, and then you have like a Diablo player with like some Lyle tech in there, and your whole point is to just kind of aggro spread the board. Then like if you ever get into a situation where like you do have to be prep, you essentially just reset Ursula. I think that would make her like infinitely easier.
Yeah, I was thinking. I actually thought that both players might have to play Diablo because it's so powerful against Ursula. Ursula's draw engine in the extreme mode is like something like 4 to 5 cards a turn at least, which like you just can't beat the tempo of that, I don't think. But yeah, the Diablo would just be nuts. I was wondering, I was like, honestly, I just felt like both decks, like I was thinking versus like two players versus Ursula. I think both decks might be green based, and one probably would have that removal. But one might just be the Kita whatever combo where it puts everything on the bottom of their deck. I can't remember the name of like the combo. It's like
Under the Sea.
Yeah, something like that. It's like the green-yellow combo. I think both decks probably base. I'm just really high on Diablo for Extreme.
No, I mean Diablo seems pretty cracked with how much Ursula draws.
Yeah. It's like I think you shift them on 2, tap them, and you're just gonna draw your entire deck.
Yeah, it's a fun for sure. We'll see how long.
So I'm tuning this out to avoid spoilers. Not too many spoilers. Like Ursula drawing a lot of cards is something that you'll realize as soon as you hit hard difficulty or the difficulty above that. So yeah.
All right. Ursula's strong. That is the main takeaway.
I'm going to let you riff for one more second. I'm going to try to fix something so we can do our trivia game. Otherwise, it'll be a disaster. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But Let's see if I can fix this.
Somebody, Diablo and 2 will have you mill yourself on extreme difficulty. I do believe that Diablo's draw trigger is a May trigger, so I don't think that would actually be a problem. Most draw triggers in Lorcana are May triggers, so you can actually deny them. It's like, it's funny, it actually flips like the Ruby Amethyst Green Steel matchup in set 3, as if you stop drawing. That being said, they started playing Flynn Riders, which made that a lot worse. Like in the lore based off your cards in hand or lack thereof. So, but yeah, but I think that probably Diablo is a May trigger.
All right. So you know. All right. I think we're gonna see if this works. I think I might be good. Phone hotspot. All right. Before we wrap, one thing we've been doing the last few weeks is having our guests do a little trivia game, playing for a playmat for somebody who's watching the show here live. I'm gonna try to select somebody at random, and then we're gonna have Brandon play a quick trivia game, which I surprised him with.
Oh, we popped out complete. This is a true takeover now. Someone asked, has anybody beat it on extreme difficulty? I don't know of anybody, but I think one of the bigger things about this, I think a lot of people don't have it yet. I'm sure somebody has beat it. Also, there's no, you like need the actual product in order to do it.
Oh, there we go.
There I am.
All right. We're gonna try to give this a go, and we're gonna be in and out. But here are the rules. Brandon, you were playing for Fireblader. I have 3 questions. You have to get 2 out of 3 right. You can use the chat if you want. I won't say whether or not you can, what you can or can't do. It's whatever you feel comfortable with. And because your name is BrendonAPG, you are known. You're known as BrendonAPG. We wanted to see how well you knew Disney characters whose name includes the letters A, P, and G. Your first clue. It's a flying ride.
Flying ride? Aladdin's Magic Carpet?
It has to include A, P, and G.
A, P, and G. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my. I no idea. These
are all Lorcana cards.
That doesn't help. They're all numbers to me. I watched a lot of 90s Disney movies. Flying ride.
The chat is not helping you.
Does
either.
Aladdin's carpet have a name or something? I mean, I feel like that would be it. No, so that's not it. Flying. Oh, somebody. I think somebody gave it to me. Yeah, Pegasus.
Oh, there's Pegasus. That's a good one.
It is from the 90s.
It is from the 90s, but yeah. I have 2 more. So there's 1 right. We have 2 more. And man, my connection seems to like trivia. Here, this is probably the hardest, I think. This is not from the 90s.
Not from the 90s? I have an actual 0% chance of getting it correct.
It is a Lorcana card. Terrace, you can assist if you want.
Am I allowed to just say the answer?
Yeah.
Go for it, yeah.
Is it Grandpappy?
It is Grandpappy.
Okay, I would have not got that.
That's all right. That's the hardest one. As soon as you say if it's not from the 90s, I didn't know it. I was like, that's gonna be the most tricky one. All right. And lastly, the chat's really showing up tonight. Lastly, academic rodent.
Academic rodent. I probably should have said if it's from the 90s, the 2000s, or today. I don't know. I have no idea.
This one is this one's not from the 90s actually. I don't think. I have to think of when this came out. I remember when this came out, but was it the 90s? Jonty, was this from the 90s? This is yeah.
I went into my memory stores and there was absolutely nothing there.
Yeah,
I feel that. I'm blank.
This is the hardest one. I want to see if somebody you did get 2 out of 3 already, Brandon. So you've already won.
I definitely got 0 out of 3.
No. I said you would have gotten it eventually. You just had to think about it. So, let's see if the chat can get it. It's not Hiram Flaversham because there's no G, right? Has to have an A, P, and a G in the name. Although, those of you in the chat who are saying Hiram are close. Hiram Flaversham is close. Oh man. a blank. Okay. I'm going to give a couple hints before we let this drag on too long. There's a reason it's an academic rodent because you need this character's title in order to get the P in.
PhD.
If you don't have his title, all you're left with is with an R and an A and a T. Oh goodness.
This is a Lorcana card as well.
Yeah, it is actually.
What color is it?
There's one in ruby.
Okay.
And I don't know if they have his title in there though. Let's see. Nope. There's one in emerald as well.
Wait, someone else said there's one in emerald. That means they know the answer. Radigan, PhD.
Emerald.
I don't know if we simultaneously froze as well.
Did it?
Radigan.
Oh, it's Professor. I didn't know that. Okay.
Of course, he's a professor. What's his title? Yeah, professor. I don't know if you ever played those, like, I forget what those trivia games are called, but they do like the silhouette of like the character. You used to like
Pokemon style. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like that.
There we go. All right, I'm back. I was like, I'm just gonna leave you all hanging forever, never tell you the answer. But yeah, there we go. Professor Radigan. Need to get the P. All right, those are all the Disney characters I could find with an AP and a G in the name. So there we go. All right. Well, hey, before I'm going to drop again like 3 or 4 times during this outro. So you'll have to pick it up for me. But thanks so much for being here, Brandon Terrace. This is a treat. Before I let you all say how to follow you, which will take up time when I drop, I do want to make sure I'm going to highlight first, Brandon. You can follow BrendonAPG on Twitter, also Podcana. Brandon, any closing thoughts? Anything you'd like to say?
I don't know. I'm just excited for the challenges. Like 2,000 players is actually unbelievable, and I'm happy that they were able to expand the cap. And I think it will be a very special event because of that. If you're on the fence about playing competitive in Lorcana, right now is the best time. It will never get better. Like the beginning is absolutely the best time. I would recommend it to anybody, and you can't get those days back. Like it's going to be super fun.
Yeah, I can't say it any better myself. Terrace, how can people follow you?
Yeah, they can follow me on Twitter, X, however you like to call it, at LSP Terrace. I also finally rebranded my YouTube channel to also be LSP Terrace, and I will be making some more content over there. Those are my main 2 at the moment.
That's awesome. Well, thank you all for joining us. For those, normally, I apologize for the connection issues. Normally, it doesn't happen. We've managed to have almost 100 people on, and this is, I think, the second time this has happened. So thanks for watching. You can follow us on YouTube. If you're watching on Twitter or any other platform, head over there and subscribe. And we're here every Monday night at 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock Central Time. Make sure, if you're watching this, make sure you head over to This Week in Ink shortly after this. They'll start up here in about 20, 30 minutes. And yeah, thanks again for joining us. So until next time,